Good day, everybody. This is Yin Yang in California with Morsels of a Thought number 1709. Can you believe it? We've hit the 1700s. I am reading Millennial Samurai Saturday by George J. Chanos. It is a book one, a mindset for the 21st century. He has all kinds of data. He presents all kinds of data regarding how the world is going to change, how our brains actually function, what input we can take, what input we're going to be receiving, how we have to change our ways of perceiving, how we have to learn and unlearn and relearn. It's a lot of stuff. So we learn about what he teaches us here. We were on tribalism. I'm going to start over on tribalism just because that way we have continuity about it. Okay. Tribalism. Humans have always lived in groups. It comes more naturally to us than any other way of life. For the overwhelming majority of our time on this planet, the tribe was the only form of human society. Tribalism is part of our evolutionary DNA. America has devolved into two tribes, each of which finds the views of the other tribe unacceptable and often incomprehensible. In each tribe, members often place their loyalty to the tribe above their loyalty to the country. Members of both tribes see events through a prism that advances not the country's interests, but their own and those of their tribe. Now, a prism is a prism. Look, there's a shaped crystal. That's a prism. When we look through it, our view is slanted and angled and not perceiving straight. That's what he means. One tribe is more ethnically diverse, mine. They live on the coasts and in major cities. They're skeptical, if not contemptuous, of religion and capitalism, and they're increasingly global in their perspectives. The other tribe is significantly more white, is spread out across the country, embraces traditional religious values and capitalism, and sees the world from a nationalist America First perspective. Each tribe dominates a major political party, and both are moving further apart. Since 2004, the most populous urban counties have moved toward Democrats, while rural counties have shifted toward Republicans. Race, religion, and geography now define our political parties and our tribes. Our political culture has become one in which the two parties see themselves not as participating in a process of moving the country forward, but one where the goal is to defeat the other party by securing a majority. Scientists call any group that people feel a part of an, quote, in group, end quote, and any group that excludes them an, quote, out group, end quote. We think differently about those in our in group than we do about those in an out group. We also behave differently toward members of each group. We do this unconsciously, whether or not we intend to discriminate between the groups. The groups that we belong to influence the way we see our own place in the world. They also influence how we view others. We all belong to many groups. The same person may think of themselves as a woman, a business owner, a mother, or a Mexican, depending on what is most relevant at the time. Our self-identification is shifting and situational. Mine is a woman, Asian American, San Franciscan, Californian, liberal, but believes in capitalism, and non-religious, and uh, okay, that's my group. Okay. Now back to George J. Chanos. Advertisers are keenly aware of this dynamic. That's why companies like Apple spend hundreds of millions on advertising campaigns that attempt to position the Apple quote in group end quote as smart, sexy, and successful. Once we think of ourselves as belonging to a certain group, a member of an exclusive country club, a member of management, a teacher, a Democrat, or a Republican, the views of others in the group begin to influence our thinking and the way we see the world. Psychologists refer to these groups as, quote, group norms, end quote. Our, quote, in groups, end quote, are, by definition, groups whose members we perceive as having a commonality of interest with us. This shared identity causes us to see our fate as being tied to the fate of our in group. We see the group's successes and failures as tied to our own. C'est true. Pravda. Okay, back to the author. One of the consequences of tribalism is that you don't actually have to think very much. All you need to know on any given subject is which side you're on. You pick up signals from everyone around you. You eventually narrow your acquaintances to those who will reinforce your worldview. Research suggests that we have a natural tendency to prefer those in our in group. Studies show that common group membership will even be more important to us than physical attributes. We may choose to be friends with someone whom we dislike simply because they are a group member, while rejecting someone else we like more because they are not a group member. We may evaluate the part we may evaluate the work of an in-group member more favorably than the work of an out-group member, even while we believe we are being objective. We treat our in-groups and our out-groups differently, whether or not we consciously intend to do so or recognize that we are doing so. That we recognize it. In a new study of the voting habits of professors, Democrats outnumber Republicans 12 to 1, and the imbalance is growing. We are reading in Morsels of a Thought number 1709 from George J. Chanos, Mindset for the 21st Century. His book is titled Millennial Samurai, Book 1, A Mindset for the 21st Century. Among professors under the age of 36, the ratio is almost 23 to 1. Democrats outnumber Republicans. Conservative dissent therefore becomes tribal blasphemy. Free speech becomes hate speech, as many of the academic elite regard opposing views as threats to their existence. Democrats looked the other way as President Obama ramped up deportations. Republicans were obsessed with the national debt when President Obama was in office, but the minute President Trump came to power, they supported a tax package that could add trillions of dollars to the nation's debt. Remarkably, research has shown that it is not even necessary that you share any characteristics with your fellow in-group members, or even for you to have met the other group members. Simply knowing that you belong to the group triggers your in-group loyalty and affinity. Affinity is closeness. We will identify with a group based on the most insignificant of distinctions and will see group members differently, even if group membership is unrelated to any relevant or meaningful characteristics. Researchers have proven this. Even when group divisions are meaningless, people unambiguously choose to discriminate in favor of their in-group. When people find it advantageous to work together, the dynamic changes. The more people find it advantageous to work together, the less they will discriminate against each other. We see this in times of crisis, during natural disasters, during wars, and during times of human tragedy. This is when the best of our human nature is revealed. Divisions become irrelevant, and we come to each other's aid regardless of who we are. Understanding tribalism is important because it helps to explain not only our own behavior, but the behavior of others. Understanding these influences can help you to identify them and address them more effectively. Valuing your unique identity, distinct from any group, being immune from labels, thinking of yourself, and considering all views are the antidotes to tribalism. Dissent from your own group is difficult. Appreciating the views of those of other tribes is even harder. It takes effort, imagination, and openness. It may even require the occasional embrace of blasphemy. It may also require forgiveness and magnanimity. The solutions to our problems as a society do not reside in either tribe. They reside in both tribes and in the space that lies between the tribes. It is imperative that you understand this. Dissent from our tribe runs against our evolutionary grain. It's counterintuitive and emotionally difficult. It is much more difficult and dangerous than affirming the shared views of our tribe, yet it is precisely what's required for our shared prosperity and mutual survival. It is absolutely essential for a millennial samurai whose reverence for their sword and the truth, requires independent thought. Independent thought. That's the antidote to tribalism, which is part of our evolutionary grain. Next, we have groupthink. In one word, groupthink. During psychologist Henry Tafel, T-A-J-F-E-L, Henry spelled with an I at the end. During psychologist Henry Tajfeld's experiments in the 1970s, he discovered a phenomenon called social identity theory. Quote, social identity theory, end quote. His last name is spelled T-A-J-F-E-L. He found that people will not just show allegiance to groups based on what many might regard as meaningful criteria. They will show allegiance to groups based on meaningless, arbitrary, and unimportant criteria like shared hair color or being randomly assigned to a group by an experimenter. Groups are created and led by individuals, and leaders often emerge from within the groups. In the 1990s, psychologist Michael Hogg, Hogg, found that group members often fail to choose the best and the brightest as their leaders. Instead, they will choose individuals that the group members can identify with. This can sometimes be the most average person in the group. By defining their group in exclusive terms, white nationalists or Black Panthers, leaders can reinforce the group's social identity and build power. This is why racism and nationalism are often effective political strategies. They are used to reinforce group identities. Experts used to think that groups make more rational and conservative decisions than individuals. The idea was that group decisions would reflect the consensus of the group, the average position of all the group's members, thereby diluting extremist views. In 1961, James Stoner released a groundbreaking study that has since been replicated hundreds of times with different groups. These studies show that groups actually make more polarized decisions than individuals do. Group decisions often accentuate the extreme biases held by group members. In the early 1970s, Yale University psychologist Irving Janis found that certain conditions can lead to a Irving Janis is spelled Janis, found that certain conditions can lead to a particularly extreme form of polarization called groupthink, quote unquote, during which an illusion of consensus takes over. It's in one word, groupthink. Factors that can lead Factors that lead to groupthink include members being close-knit and like-minded, a group leader who makes his or her position known, and the group being shut off from other influences and opinions. If you pay attention, you will see this happening all around you. Universities that have predominantly conservative or liberal faculty members, which discourage or limit speakers with alternative views on campus, create a fertile environment for groupthink. Political parties that promote certain views and are less receptive to alternative perspectives promote groupthink. Companies whose ownership or leadership openly supports certain beliefs also promote groupthink. Groupthink is dangerous because it can lead to bad decisions and even the widespread adoption and normalization of extremist views. Millennial samurai think for themselves. We are reading Millennial Samurai, Book 1, A Mindset for the 21st Century by George J. Chanos. We are now reading Cognitive Dissonance. Cognitive dissonance is when, for example, I start to think about how, oh my God, that candy bar can be $100, you know? Anyway. In cognitive dissonance, inconsistency between our thoughts and our actions causes mental discomfort, cognitive dissonance. The human brain resolves that conflict by changing our attitudes to match our behaviors. For example, if you voted for Donald Trump and you heard him say you can grab them by the pussy, you might excuse the comment as locker room banter. Conversely, if you voted for Hillary Clinton, you might excuse her destruction of 33,000 emails as unintentional or insignificant. We all adjust our thoughts to conform to our previous actions in order to avoid the mental discomfort caused by cognitive dissonance. This is how our brains function. Unfortunately, it serves to harden our positions. It doesn't help us find the truth. To find the truth, we need to be aware of our brain's inherent limitations, be open to all information, and realize that our perceptions, clouded by our biases, often differ from reality. We need to challenge our own biases and assumptions. To see the truth, we must be aware of this inherent physiological limitation on our reasoning. We must always question our assumptions and constantly guard against our biases. We must protect ourselves from the potentially harmful effects of cognitive dissonance and recognize how it can impede our search for the truth. Okay? Next, we've got motivated reasoning. Chapter 43, page 103. Okay. Motivated reasoning helps us to believe in our own competence and goodness, to feel in control, and to see ourselves in a positive light. It shapes the way we interpret information and see our environment. It helps us to justify and validate our preferred beliefs. The way we view and assess information is highly correlated to our vested interests and to our sense of self. Motivated reasoning happens outside of our conscious awareness. Therefore, people's claims of being objective or unbiased may be entirely sincere, even as they make decisions that are in reality self-serving. For example, Physicians may believe that they are immune from monetary influence, yet studies confirm that accepting industry hospitality and gifts has a significant influence on patient care decisions. Investment managers' estimates of the probability of certain events have been shown to have a significant correlation to their personal interest in those events. Our computations and calculations are implicitly colored by who we are, what we believe, and what we want. In fact, the motivated reasoning we engage in when we have personal interest in something proceeds along a different neural pathway within the brain than our objective and disinterested analysis. When information that is consistent with our existing beliefs and desires enters the brain, it is immediately welcomed. When information that challenges our existing beliefs and desires enters our brain, it is subjected to a gauntlet of challenges. We poke holes in information we don't want to believe and find ways to accept information we like. That's important. The net effect on communication is to amplify rather than reduce disagreement. When people want to believe a scientific conclusion, they'll accept a vague news report of a random experiment as convincing evidence. And when they don't want to accept something like global warming exists, the fact that 97% of scientists and the National Academy of Scientists support the conclusion will not be enough to convince them. Through motivated reasoning, each side finds ways to justify its favored conclusion and discredit the other while maintaining a belief in their own objectivity. And since motivated reasoning operates outside of our conscious awareness, those on each side of an issue may genuinely believe that their view is the only rational conclusion. It rarely is. What we need to learn from this is that those who disagree with us are not necessarily stupid or dishonest in their refusal to acknowledge the validity of our arguments. More importantly, we need to recognize that our own reasoning is very often less than objective. We need to be aware that both sides of any discussion may be assessing information in a biased manner while being unaware of doing so. The human brain is designed to be both a conscious seeker of objective truth and an unconscious advocate for what we want to believe. Together, these approaches form our worldview. This is the inherent nature of your double-edged sword. I think it has to do with the ability to adopt, a child. You want to adopt it, so therefore you don't think about how it takes away from your uh, supply of resources. So if the human brain is designed to be both a conscious seeker of objective truth and an unconscious advocate for what we want to believe, then if we want to believe that this kid is honest and good, then that's what we will believe no matter what he does. Look at the Sandy Hook thing. The murderer's father collected his body still. See? Okay, so this is Millennial Samurai, Saturday, Book 1, A Mindset for the 21st Century by George J. Chanos. Okay, I will talk to you again later. Here, my voice is going blah, 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 and it's good to see you. Hi, John Clark. Bye. Old Kinderhook.